Now at noon, a KGW weather impact alert for a late August heat wave. We're going to have the latest on the extreme temperatures that are expected to arrive tomorrow and stick with us through early next week. Plus, an update on the search for 3 suspects accused of shooting and killing a teenager while he was sleeping. Also ahead, Portland police catch a driver trying to dodge them in a high-speed chase, and it turns out the driver was only 13 years old. Then later.
We're either ready to go back to school or we're ready to hit the picket lines.
Some workers in Vancouver's Evergreen School District are voting today on whether or not to go on strike with just 5 days to go before the start of the school year. What they're demanding and how the district is responding. KGW News at noon starts right now. We start today's News at Noon with this, a live look at downtown Portland from our Rose City Skycam. Warming up today, but pretty comfortable for August. Tomorrow, not so much, with triple-digit temperatures possible on Friday. Keep in mind, Multnomah County is holding a press conference right now to update the county's plan to help keep people safe during the heat wave. We are airing that live on our TV streaming app, KGW+. We'll also recap what they say coming up here on the News at Noon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Drew Carney. There's Rod Hill standing by in the Weather Center, tracking this heat wave that, again, Rod, will start tomorrow, right? Stretches into early next week. Are you still calling for 100 degrees tomorrow?
I am tomorrow. I will tell you, if you watched us or saw my forecast earlier today, the only change I've decided to make is Saturday's forecast. I took that 100 and I increased it to 102. Now, I still believe as a forecaster that whatever we do, Saturday will end up being the pinnacle, the height of how high the temperatures will go. We're 72 right now. Drew showed you that sunny sky. Tomorrow we could be like 84, 85 at this time. So the extreme heat warning is set to go into effect for Portland, Salem, and Vancouver starting at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning and extending all the way through the day Monday. And this is for the areas in pink from south of Eugene up into Vancouver and then the gorge out through Hood River. These are areas with a realistic chance to hit 100 degrees. I simply don't do it that often. The orange colors, which is you folks up in Kelso Longview, not expected to reach 100, but be well up into the 90s. You are under a heat advisory starting tomorrow. So heat exhaustion with 100-degree temperatures, the need for water, shade, AC, all big-time talking points. 72, yeah, there's the number at high noon. Actually, we're cooler than I thought we'd be, so I left the forecast high at 89, but we may not get that warm, which is fine, right? Tomorrow we will be up to the 90s and maybe, as I mentioned, 100 degrees. More on that coming up, Drew.
Bottom line, Rod, the heat is really going to take off tomorrow, right? As runners take off for this year's Hood to Coast Relay. So this is known, if you're from this area, as the mother of all relays. The annual event begins Friday on Mount Hood. It ends Saturday on the beach and seaside. About 19,000 runners are expected to take part this year. And event organizers are well aware of the weather conditions. They say they know Friday's heat will be a challenge, especially in the late afternoon. So they say ice and cooling towels will be available at exchange points along the hottest stretches of the course. First responders will also be on hand to help with any heat-related issues.
And we have enthusiastic participants from 50 states and 40 countries, and the enthusiasm is the best part about them, but it's also the thing that we have to rein in a little bit when it comes to heat and safety. And so this weekend, it's all about communication for us, and that communication starts right now with hydration, early and often.
The first wave of runners leave Timberline tomorrow at 2:30 in the morning. Each relay team member tackles 3 legs along the course, which runs 200 miles from start to finish. All right, we have another example of how dangerous hot temperatures can be this time of the year. Multnomah County officials believe that 2 people in the county died 2 weeks ago from heat-related illness. Seniors living alone and without AC are always among the most vulnerable. So to help with that, places like the Gresham Senior Center are inviting people inside to cool off. The center offers programs and meals for people 50 and over, but they say anyone trying to escape the heat is welcome.
We want to get that message out, even late in the season. Don't tough it out. Try to find cool spaces.
Again, we'll have more weather coverage for you coming up here in just a few minutes. KGW Weather Impact Alert Days start tomorrow, run through the beginning of next week. Rod's full forecast is about 10 minutes away. We'll also bring you the latest updates on heat warnings and advisories on our mobile app and on KGW.com. We got an update today on the search for 3 people accused of shooting and killing a 13-year-old while he was sleeping in his bed. The shooting happened in April. A month later, police released these photos of the suspects. Around 1:30 in the morning, gunshots went through the wall of a Gresham apartment, hitting and killing Liam Spanley Bailey. His family says he was supposed to go snowboarding with his dad later that day. At a press conference this morning, Gresham police asked the community to help them get justice for Liam's family.
We will not stop. We will pursue every lead, exhaust every resource, and do everything in our power to hold accountable those who are responsible for Liam's murder. Liam deserved safety, Liam deserved a future, and now Liam deserves justice.
The Multnomah County District Attorney says he'll prosecute anyone who's hiding these suspects. There's also a $15,000 reward from the U.S. Marshal's Office for any information that leads to their arrest. The national redistricting battle enters its next phase today as California Democrats respond to what happened in Texas. They're voting on a new congressional map for California that would create 5 winnable seats for their party. This move is a direct counter to what happened in the Texas House of Representatives, where they drew up a new map to create 5 more conservative-leaning seats for Texas. But unlike in Texas, where the bill can be passed by the Republican-controlled state Senate and then signed into law by Republican Governor Greg Abbott, California faces a more uncertain route. Democrats there have to use their legislative supermajority to pass the map by a 2/3 margin today. Then Governor Newsom must sign the bill by tomorrow to meet ballot deadlines. After all that, they have to schedule a special election in November for voters to approve the map. In other national headlines this afternoon, New York Appeals Court has struck down the $500 million civil judgment against President Trump and his companies. This civil case was brought on by New York Attorney General Letitia James while Trump was out of office. James said today that she plans to appeal that ruling. Meanwhile, the U.S. has agreed to limit tariffs on some products imported from the European Union. According to an agreement released today, pharmaceuticals, lumber, and semiconductors will be tariffed at 15%. One of the most important exemptions sought by the EU for the wine and spirits industry did not make it into today's agreement. At least 600 employees at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are being laid off after a court ruling. The judge protected some employees from layoffs, but not all of them. The Department of Health and Human Services said the restructuring and downsizing were done with the goal of making the health agency more efficient and more responsive. Hurricane Erin did not make landfall along the East Coast, but it's still bringing strong winds and coastal flooding to parts of New Jersey and Delaware. Waves could reach 7 to 12 feet along parts of the East Coast. Officials also say the threat of dangerous, life-threatening rip currents will continue into this weekend. And that's a look at some of today's national headlines. Russia launched its largest drone and missile strikes against Ukraine in more than a month. The attacks come just days after President Trump met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He did this in an effort to end the war, but today Moscow is signaling little interest in peace talks. So now, as diplomatic pressure builds to find a way out of this 3-year conflict, Russia's foreign minister is pouring cold water on the idea of real negotiations. Here's NBC's Raf Sanchez with more from London.
As President Trump continues his efforts to reach a peace deal, Russia is stepping up its attacks on Ukraine. Overnight, it launched another massive aerial bombardment. This is one of the largest of the entire year. The Ukrainian military says more than 500 drones and some 40 missiles were launched at targets all over the country, including near the city of Lviv, which is all the way in western Ukraine. It is hundreds of miles from the front line. At least one person was killed there, according to President Zelensky, and an American electronics business was hit by one of these Russian missiles. Zelensky says this is a company that makes coffee makers, among other things, that it has nothing to do with the war effort. Now, France is saying that these strikes are proof that the Russians are not serious about reaching a peace deal. And at this point, it's very unclear what the next step will be in this process. President Trump wants Zelensky and Putin to sit down together at the table. That's something that has not happened since the beginning of the full-scale invasion back in February of 2022. And the Kremlin, at this point, is refusing to commit to a meeting like that. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, London.
All right, back to some local headlines now. In Multnomah County, deputies say a driver led them on a chase in the middle of the night along I-84, and it turns out the driver was only 13 years old. The sheriff's office says this happened around 3:15 Sunday morning. That's when a deputy tried to stop a driver who they thought may have been driving under the influence. They say the car took off and deputies eventually had to use spike strips to stop it.
Everyone on the scene was shocked to see that the driver was actually a 13-year-old kid. If that car had crashed, it could have been tragic.
The driver, again, was just 13. He also had 5 teenage passengers in the car with him. Police say 2 of them were reported runaways. No one was hurt, though. The 13-year-old faces several charges, including reckless driving and eluding a police officer.